I think the Republican Party has basically disintegrated because it's been taken over by billionaires. I mean, you got billionaires who just stacked the Wisconsin Supreme Court so that the prosecutor who was investigating whether those same billionaires were committing a crime with Scott Walker would be, the prosecution would be stopped. And not only stopped, according to the Center for American Progress, the court ruling saying that they wanted to prevent the chilling of otherwise protected speech required that the prosecutors, and I quote, this is from the ruling of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, now that there are 4 right-wingers on the court put there with money from the Wisconsin Club for Growth, one of the Koch brothers PACs. They ordered that the prosecutors who were investigating Scott Walker, quote, permanently destroy all copies of information and other materials obtained through the investigation. End of quote. I'm telling you, Scott Walker is Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon got to be president by committing treason. Lyndon Johnson had worked out the details. Did you get that clip and let's play it? Lyndon Johnson had worked out the details of an end to the Vietnam War in 1968. His vice president, Hubert Humphrey, was the nominee of the party and was running for president. And LBJ knew, and Richard Nixon knew, who was running against Humphrey, that if LBJ and Hubert Humphrey could end the Vietnam War before November, before Election Day, then Humphrey would win, right? I mean, the anti-Vietnam War sentiment was huge in the United States. And LBJ had worked out a deal. And then Nixon and his people contacted the South Vietnamese and said, don't go along with that deal. We will make you personally rich, and we will give you a better deal if you just wait until after the election. In fact, here, and the CIA caught the wiretap of it. There's an article about this in Salon today that I wrote. You can read it. It's also on Alternet. It started on Alternet, and Salon picked it up, salon.com. It's titled, something like, you can expect the GOP to try to torpedo the Iran deal because they've done it before. And this is referring to the Jimmy Carter situation. But with Nixon, because we're talking about Scott Walker here, we're talking about Richard Nixon. This, when LBJ learned that Nixon had contacted South Vietnam and said, just hold off until after the election so that Hubert Humphrey will lose and I'll become president, and I'll make you guys rich and I'll give you a better deal. He called up Everett Dirksen, who was the leader of the Republicans in the Senate and an extraordinarily good man. He was my dad's kind of Republican, Everett Dirksen, and a man of high ethical standard. They named one of the Senate buildings after him. Democrats loved him as well as Republicans. LBJ calls up Everett Dirksen and has this conversation.
Here's the latest information we got. The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico. And that he says that you must hold out. Just hold on until after the election. We know what Chew is saying to them out there. Yeah. We're pretty well informed on both ends. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know. And LBJ basically was working with Everett Dirksen to try to stop Nixon, and Dirksen kept calling him back saying, he's ignoring me, or he's saying that he's not actually doing it. He's denying it. Nixon actually called LBJ at one point and denied it. These tapes were only released a couple of years ago. But anyway, this is, so Scott Walker basically doing the same thing. I mean, just win elections by any means necessary.